Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is 12:30, so we are going to kick off. Our webinar today is top tips for maximizing and measuring your social advertising. So I hope you guys are all excited about that. Just a bit on housekeeping before we get started. So we should run about 30 minutes today. There will be time for a Q&A at the end. There's a chat feature within Webinar Jam, so feel free to put any of your questions into the chat and we can answer them as we go, or we'll just answer them at the end as well. Today's presentation is being recorded, so anything, if you have to drop out or if you want to share it with a colleague, we'll send you all the details afterwards. And with that being said, I am now going to pass it over to Jack Carr, Senior Performance Manager at NMPI.
Thanks, Lisa. As Lisa has said, I'm Jack, and that was a very large picture of my face, which is slightly disconcerting. I'm a Senior Performance Manager here at NMPI. I started off here as a graduate 3 years ago, originally focusing purely on paid search, but as I've progressed, I've gravitated towards paid social steadily. This background, coupled with the fact that we as an agency have many clients we work with on a multi-channel basis, has naturally drawn me towards exploring the ways that each channel can benefit each other and an advertiser's wider business goals. Each of the channels that we'll look at today, we're going to focus primarily on paid social, but also look a little bit at display and search. Each clearly has its own strengths and weaknesses, and leveraging those to drive maximum performance across all channels is a very worthwhile challenge, with benefits both to the bottom line and the experience your customers have, whether long-term loyalists, those that drifted away, or completely new faces. So what I'm going to present here is nowhere near a complete list of possibilities, nor are the solutions offered here perfect, but they serve as a basis for how we should be thinking about individual channels within our wider marketing mix, as I mentioned, focusing primarily on social. So just to run through how we'll operate here, I'll kick off with a bit of background as to where the industry finds itself as we head towards the end of the first quarter of 2019. Then we'll look at some of the fundamental measures that need to be in place for social to be a success individually. I'll focus primarily on Facebook and Instagram, as this is where the majority of our media spend is focused currently, and where most of my personal experience is. But many of the measures described within apply equally for other social platforms as well. And finally, we'll move on to the main meat of the presentation, which is the key methods for taking this individual success from the social channel and sharing and growing through your wider marketing efforts, with a focus, as I mentioned, on search and display mainly. So the background, it's impossible to say that social media hasn't been close to the news pretty regularly in the last year or so. Whilst previously this was a result of record user growth, eye-catching acquisitions, or product development, there's now going that this was a turbulent year for the biggest players in the industries, with a brief selection of some of the lowlights, including the Facebook apps family being continually dogged by scandal after investigation, after leak, after scandal, with growing calls for further sanctions, regulations, regime changes, and more. The 1.25 million users that signed a petition to revert the Snapchat update, a figure that was then beaten by the $1.3 billion in market value, lost in a day after the infamous Kylie Jenner tweet, "Does anyone else not open Snapchat anymore?" There are, of course, a steady stream of controversies regarding Twitter, but these do tend to be due to the misuse of the platform, as rather more embarrassing to the users involved in the platform itself. In general, Facebook seems to have the most to worry about here, with the future extremely unclear. Will Zuckerberg stay at the reins? Will regulations finally catch up with an industry that has far outpaced the attention and understanding of lawmakers? And will the worrying trend of user loss in Europe and stagnation in the US continue? There are far more questions than answers here, and it'll be fascinating to watch these unfold over the coming months. I'm not planning on answering any of those questions in this webinar. But what that does move us on to is, after this slightly bleak and unfortunately massively incomplete summary of some of the myriad of issues facing the big social networks, the question that might understandably arise is, why does paid social matter? Why would I want my brand to be on these undeniably flawed platforms? The key reason really is that billions of users are there to be reached. This includes your current key customers who you want to communicate with, lapsed customers that you can bring back to the fold, and new customers that may have never even heard of you. Just a brief summary of some of the massive numbers involved here. For January 2019, 2.3 billion monthly average users on Facebook, 1.9 billion on YouTube, 1.5 billion on WhatsApp, 1.3 billion on Messenger, 1 billion on Instagram, 326 million on Twitter, 287 million on Snapchat, and many more elsewhere. Put simply, the scale is enormous. And these platforms also offer the ability to leverage incredible amounts of insightful data to make sure you're showing ads to those most likely to engage with them. Then, once you've used this wealth of data to build out target audiences, you might not be able to access through any other means. There is an enormously wide variety of engaging and creative ways to bring your message to this audience. Ad formats can range from Facebook canvases to sponsored pins to sponsored filters and lenses on Snapchat. Ultimately, the world is your oyster here in terms of building out these imaginative campaigns to such a wide-reaching audience. So we now veered back to the positive sides of Facebook, but there are still a few factors that are holding it back from achieving its potential with many advertisers. This can start off from a loss of opportunity within the platforms themselves, where some campaign build errors can impact activity on a large scale. And moving on from that, skipped on a bit too far. Moving on from that, attribution is notoriously tricky with social, making it hard to report, budget, and then also optimize. And finally, the often siloed state of social from other channels sacrifices many potential performance and also user experience gains. So ultimately, this begs the question that we're going to address in the webinar today, which is how can marketers operate efficient, impactful social campaigns that have a positive, measurable impact across their marketing portfolio and also wider business. So as I've mentioned before, we're going to start off before looking at the cross-channel implications, we're going to look at how to set solid foundations in social specifically. In my view, the key to this is intelligently implemented and complementary audience and creative strategy with clear goals. This is clearly a more complex and layered issue than this, and I could go into a lot more detail here, but I'm going to focus on these three key areas to kick us off with, so audience, creative, and campaign goals. Start with tailored campaign goals. For looking at Facebook and Instagram, the correct campaign goal not only affects the options available in setting up your campaign, but also inform all optimization decisions available going forwards. There's a wide range available, each with their own associated targets, benefits, and drawbacks. I won't delve deep into the different options here, but needless to say, it's key to do your research here. It's the first decision you'll need to make when setting up a campaign, and will ultimately have an immeasurable impact on the success of your campaign if a poor choice is made. So don't get me wrong, there are some shades of grey where the impact might not be quite so pronounced, such as between, say, a reach or a brand awareness campaign. But if you're running a traffic-based campaign, for example, when you're attempting to maximize ROI, or a reach-based campaign when you want as many people as possible to watch your new branding video, your campaign will never truly succeed. Even if you've nailed the targeting, nailed the creative, nailed everything else in the campaign, if you set it up with a poorly chosen campaign goal, you're shooting yourself in the foot from the get-go. So moving on from campaign goals, on looking at audiences. So this seems obvious, but make sure you're leveraging all audience social has to offer. It's one of the unique benefits of the platform, the interest, behavioral, lookalikes, dynamic retargeting, dynamic prospecting, pixel audiences. I don't think I need to dwell too much on quite how varied the information we have available is to build out this complex layered targeting on social. One of the most attractive elements of social advertising is this vast amount of information given usually voluntarily by your audiences. It's a criminal waste to not least test as many possible and logical combinations. So granularity, as with all digital marketing, is extremely important. And this is still the case for social, but it really does need to be justified. If you're not serving a different creative or directing you to a different landing page or something along those lines, then do you really need to segment? There are large amounts of customizations you can perform within ads, such as different creatives for different placements, and overeager segmentation, so spreading out your ad sets unnecessarily, is likely to instead impair Facebook's natural optimization, which is going to negatively impact your performance and potentially drive up your costs as well. And Then overlaying is also key to define audiences further. Whilst Facebook's lookalike audiences and interest targeting and dynamic prospecting, etc., are powerful, these need to be narrowed down further. You need to take back some of the control from Facebook here. Firstly, use the demographic data you've gathered in your own analytics platform or from your other channels. If a certain age group or gender performs well, make sure you're layering this onto your targeting. Negative audiences from overlapping, will avoid overlapping as well to avoid escalating frequency. Just because two people happen to fall into two of your audiences doesn't mean they're going to respond any better seeing your ad an excessive amount of times. Finally, from your own data, this is where granularity is key. Find the top performing groups within your existing CRM database to expand via lookalikes. So whether this is regular purchasers, people who regularly purchase the high AOV, plus also find those that have lapsed, maybe never converted, maybe they open your emails but never click, and target them with compelling offers and creative to bring them back into the fold. The options here do depend largely on the scale of your CRM database, how granular you can go, particularly in the post-GDPR landscape, where we're aware that a lot of our clients have suffered losses to the size of the CRM database they can still use. And also the quality of the data collected when it was collected. This sort of affects how much you can segment by performance data, for example. And moving on from audiences, and so the final section of the base pillars of good social campaigns is inspiring and hyper-relevant creative. One of the key things here is avoiding the one-size-fits-all creative approach. Whilst a consistent brand image is key, you're very unlikely to maximize success if you're not first defining your brand image and then the audience and campaign goal within that. For example, you're trying to draw new customers to your business where they may need a more informative creative, or you're driving existing customers to site or re-engaging with lapsed customers where you may need to focus more on highlighting offers or new products or whatever it may be. So going back to what was said earlier, a coherent brand creative strategy is extremely important as it increases the value of an impression. It's a sad fact and symptom of the social media age that users' attention span is more fleeting than ever. You're ultimately increasing the value of an impression if the brand image they got from that matches up with any other interactions they may have had with your brand. Ultimately, this appreciation of social's role within your wider marketing mix and making sure it aligns with everything else in your business strategy is a key area of growth for many advertisers to break out of the silos and drive increased performance across your business. And that brings us on to the main subject of this presentation, which is cross-channel. Ultimately, the word that's going to come up a lot here is sharing, and it's really the key word here. Sharing data, insights, attribution. All of this improves an individual channel's performance as well as the business as a whole. So to start off with, we're going to look at sharing creative strategy. So whilst there are obviously key differences in the copy and imagery used in social search and display, it's a wasted opportunity if there isn't at least some clear shared strategy. This leads to a coherent and effectual customer journey where whether their first touch point is a display prospecting campaign, an Instagram story, or a generic search. And the insights gathered from the success and failures of different creative and copy should be shared across as well. Whilst there may be differences in an image that works well on social versus display, or a headline on search versus social, you're wasting the opportunity for shared success if you keep insights siloed into the channel where they were gathered. Successful social copy should certainly be tested on search, but with an appreciation of who the targeted audience was that it performed well for. For instance, a successful copy for retargeting audience is likely to work best on a branded or RLSA campaign in search, while the same is true for prospecting copy being best placed for use in generic campaigns. Additionally, properly applied sequential messaging using the audiences from cross-channel remarketing lists help create a coherent customer journey from first to last touch point. In the example you can see here for Eurail, client of ours, you can see that the imagery used is aspirational in display with copy calling out luxury, style, etc. They focus on their free upgrade first class offer and the from Eurail with love messaging. This is a prospecting banner based on contextual targeting on a travel website looking at top tips for traveling in Europe. The next stage of their journey may be an ad on Instagram where they get similarly aspirational imagery, along with copy calling out similar offers and featuring the "from URL would love" branding slogan. The final step may then be to search a branded keyword, where they'll again see the same offer pushed, as well as the same branding slogan. This, and I know I'm repeating this word a bit, but coherent journey keeps pushing the customer down the funnel from first interaction, reminding them of key USPs, brand values, and offers. So on from creative strategy, performance data. Ultimately, each individual channel gathers an enormous amount of data, and it's all too often criminally underused outside of its own silo. Whilst any advertiser will maybe say optimizing at product level on Google Shopping or selecting products for the homepage based off site-wide performance, there aren't enough cases of that data being freed to influence bidding decisions and dynamic product selection in, say, display or paid social. A really important campaign type for us on social is dynamic ads for broad audiences. It's an extremely powerful tool to reach new customers targeted via effectively product level lookalikes based off their interest groups on Facebook, as well as their browsing history on competitor sites, which have the Facebook pixel placed. If we accept that Facebook is finding the perfect users to display ads to, although I don't personally fall into that camp and think some kind of audience overlaying is necessary as well, it does stand to reason that we need to ensure they're being served the perfect products. Whilst Facebook's algorithm will supposedly serve products that fit the type of what they're looking for, this doesn't reflect the fact that one particular variant may be much better selling than the other, and ultimately you're missing out by not showing them this best performing product. There are multiple ways of looking at this. Historical performance of products is clearly one, whether that's from display dynamic, Google Shopping, or on-site performance. Each offers its own insight into product performance based due to the different ways they've been displayed. So Google Shopping's obviously, and display dynamic are a very visual medium as well, in that people have seen the product and then click through, which is similar to how it's going to be displayed in social. Whereas maybe site-wide performance is more based, could be more based off price competitiveness or other elements to do with the product. This can all be pulled into the feed, ultimately dynamically changing product selection based off constantly updated performance. However, it can be argued this is inherently biased against new products, meaning that extra inputs may be needed that can be manually changed to push new hero products, for example, new launches that are expected to do well, but ultimately have no historical data to prove that that's going to be the case. The ideal mix of what inputs you're using and how you're building these out will vary enormously from advertiser to advertiser. Similarly to creative, there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach here that's going to work well. If you're using the data, you're well on your way. The next step is to wield that power responsibly and intelligently. And I have a slightly cringy slogan here: share, inform, and perform. So moving on from data usage, looking on audiences and sharing audiences across. So one of the main powers of social is its status as a push medium rather than the pull of search. So we need to leverage this to push ads to hyper-relevant audiences based from the lookalikes, dynamic audiences, interest targeting, and more that was mentioned earlier. Ultimately, this is all about making sure you play to each channel's strengths. Paid search is extremely adept at picking off the low-hanging fruits, customers who have declared their intent and are close to making a purchase, but may be unsure about where to spend their money. Paid social, on the other hand, is a different beast, and the users on there have a different attitude. Most Facebook or Instagram users are looking to be entertained, informed, and to generally pass some time. Intelligently targeted ads with engaging creative can satisfy these needs while exposing new customers to your brand or re-engaging with existing customers. It may be that they don't convert first of all, as the customer is earlier in the funnel, may not be buying right now, etc. But the audiences can then be passed onto search and display or social remarketing to ensure that these newly brand-aware customers are targeted with relevant ad copy, higher bids, or whatever else it may be, tailored landing pages, whatever is needed to bring them further down the funnel. Just to run through a few examples. In a sale period, you might target those who have full price Google Shopping ads, and then in the sale period, target them with sale related Facebook social ads. Additionally, you may take lower converting people who've clicked through, lower converting Instagram stories, and then retarget them with more aggressive generic bids, more aggressive PLA bids, and product carousels, also in social. And finally, you might make an audience of those as you're going into, again, if you're going into sale periods, make an audience of those that have clicked through sale-related keywords, those who click through sale-related or discounted Google Shopping, and those that have clicked on sale-related Facebook ads. Collect this all into one audience that you know is very price sensitive. You could potentially negative out all those that have purchased full price, and then use this as an audience to target purely in sale periods, potentially at the end when you're trying to clear stock, and push it out there. And I hate to use the old trope of arrows going everywhere in a presentation, but anything really is possible here, and it has the potential to grow your activity if based off solid foundations. Additionally, these audiences give insight into the lifetime value generated by your prospecting campaigns on Facebook particularly. Audiences created from these interactions show how brand aware customers behave in the future as they come back to convert through paid search and so-called social remarketing campaigns, and can ultimately be used as a way of proving the value of social more. So finally, looking at sharing a source of truth, so this is related to attribution. Ultimately, a large amount of advertisers still rely on Facebook's tracking, which is intrinsically flawed. It operates in a silo, not taking into account any other touch points in the path to purchase, and consequently often wildly overestimating Facebook's contribution. As a result, Facebook will attribute a sale to an ad within Facebook, regardless of whether this was the only touch point in the path to purchase, or whether the user viewed a display ad, clicked a search ad, and then just glanced at Facebook during the checkout process and was then targeted with a dynamic retargeting ad. This effect can be seen in the example here, where 3 channels would have claimed responsibility for driving the single sale. Anecdotally, I've heard stories of paid social claiming up to a ridiculous 50% of total digital revenue as a result of this silo view, with over 80% of total revenue, overall revenue, already accounted for by properly attributed channels. This overvaluation of Facebook's role in the conversion path ends up having the inverse effect, causing advertisers to undervalue social. Lack of faith in results generated through this, driven through this channel, means that even the sales genuinely driven via, or at least significantly influenced by paid social, are often lost in a cluster of misallocated conversions. Ultimately, this leads to inefficient budgeting and a serious lost opportunity to show compelling advertising to billions of daily active users. Many marketers have decided to continue to use Facebook's massively flawed attribution model, i.e. award everything to Facebook, rather than look at alternatives. Ultimately, this is unacceptable. How can we begin to apply bid optimizations, determine budget allocation, and effectively test using such an inaccurate system? One advantage we have is that our accounts are all whitelisted to use third-party post-view tracking on non-custom Facebook audiences, including interest, behavioral, demographic targeting, but excluding anything built from CRM lists or the Facebook pixel, including lookalikes, and also all dynamic activity. This does mean on those campaigns we can appropriately attribute and dedupe post-view sales, and also view the role that these campaigns play in the path to purchase. Whilst a video prospecting campaign, for example, may not lead to many deduped post-view sales, it will play a key role in the path to purchase. Without insight into brand engagement, budgets may be unfairly cut. However, this is seriously limited by the fact that these post-view trackers will only work properly to track sales when the user is on a browser rather than the app, which does represent a low percentage of overall users. So whilst Facebook can track post-view themselves out of the app, they limit advertisers' access to this and are reluctant to allow full insight into post-view ad performance. However, they are much more open with post-click. So via the use of click trackers from Google Marketing Platform, Google Analytics, and affiliate networks, we can get much more insight into a dedupe post-click performance. Ultimately, many advertisers aren't making full use of this yet, potentially because they fear the dedupe view will drastically devalue their channel or misunderstand the effort involved in setting this up. If your reluctance to dedupe is born from fear of results, then simply need to have more faith in your campaigns or improve them. We've seen promising returns from following deduping on a post-click basis and direct response campaigns. In one campaign, despite losing 70% of the Facebook attributed post-click sales after deduping against search and display, we were still able to drive revenue at a ROAS of over 400%. This level of deduping varies quite significantly across various campaign strategies and also discounts the vast amount of additional post-view sales that Facebook will claim. But this gives an idea as the overall scale of sales that Facebook will mistakenly claim 100% of the credit for. Instead, so when we utilize this the post-click deduping, we can see here that we're left with one channel claiming the purchase while appreciating the value of the other touch points. Ultimately, this does, as we've seen, take out a lot of Facebook's contribution. So we need to make sure we overlay this with insights from Facebook's attribution solution. Whilst post-view can't be effectively deduped, there is an added value to actions that are influenced by viewing a Facebook ad. It's particularly a case of branding campaigns, which might center around video or canvas views as opposed to driving traffic to a website. Therefore, it's important to adopt a flexible and multi-layered approach to attribution modeling when running Facebook activity along other channels. A dedupe post-click gives us a clearer view of true ROAS, allowing us to make optimization decisions such as distributing budgets across channels and evaluating the performance of various targeting audiences. However, this will not be a complete view without also incorporating the value of post-view. With both of these, we can optimize based off facts rather than opinion and guesswork. There is also an opportunity to take your attribution beyond online and bring offline performance, influenced by online campaigns into the mix. With Facebook's store visit campaigns tracking, although it's primarily available in the US at the moment, and again, that's also only on beta. But ultimately, the aim will be to have that rolled out further. If you combine that with offline sales reporting from providers such as wire receipts, there's an opportunity to make a tangible and measurable impact on your bricks and mortar performance with your online campaigns. So bringing multi-channel beyond looking just at your digital channels. So just to summarize this all and put it all together, I've got a very retro Venn diagram. Ultimately, some optimization activities do need to remain relatively siloed due to some of the unique characteristics, such as keyword refinement within paid search, DSP selection within display, placement optimization within paid social. Do you want to be on appearing in the audience network, on the Facebook newsfeed, on Snapchat, on Twitter? Some of these things are still need to be taken on channel by channel level. Some may primarily cross over with only one channel, such as targeting creative, having a crossover between paid social and display, and copy having a bit of a crossover between search and social. However, as I was putting this together, it became very clear that there's very little that doesn't overlap. Your budget, your attribution, your audiences, your performance data, your landing page optimization, amongst many others that I can fit into this for formatting reasons. There are many things that are key to make sure you're sharing across all of your marketing mix. So I hope this has given you all some information on the massive potential of social when the foundations are strong and it's broken out of its silo, both in itself and also in the impact it can have on your understanding of your customers and the performance you can drive from them across all your marketing mix. That's all from me in terms of presentation, but I see there are a few questions that have come in, which I will do my best to field now. So if one coming in, can everyone see these?
Well, yeah, but so the first one is from Fredmont. What KPIs should I be looking for retargeting versus prospecting?
Okay, so I wouldn't necessarily split it out as retargeting versus prospecting, as there are still further splits within this. For example, I group direct response retargeting and prospecting together and expect similar KPIs for this, so ROI, revenue, etc. But it's obviously still important to expect and forecast for differences in returns on those KPIs between retargeting and prospecting on direct response. However, for branding campaigns, it does become more necessary to approach retargeting and prospecting with different KPIs. Firstly, you need to define your brand awareness metric. For example, is this video views, clicks through to a page, post shares, page likes. Facebook offers a brand recall metric, but I am not convinced as to its effectiveness and value as a reporting KPI. But it is what all the brand awareness campaigns optimize towards automatically. For pure branding prospecting, you're probably generally wiser to focus on the lesser levels of engagement to judge success. So a video view rather than a click through to a page, for example. Again, this will vary massively, depending on the campaign. But for retargeting branding, such as pushing a new season launch, for example, to those who have engaged with the brand previously at some point, you can expect to focus more on KPIs along the lines of click-through rate or potentially even ROI. Ultimately, what I'm saying is that the KPIs vary pretty widely, based not just off retargeting versus prospecting, but also the types of campaign, how broad the prospecting is, the creative used, and much more as well.
Okay, as we are running out of time, we'll answer one more question. And then if you have any questions after that, you can reach us on Twitter at @NMPI_digital, or you can email us info@nmpidigital.com. But for now, so last question, we'll take Ruthie's question. You've mentioned the variety of issues that Facebook particularly has suffered over the previous year, as well as acknowledged that a large percentage of media spend goes into the platform currently. How do you view the future of the channel in light of this?
So yeah, that is correct. A certain amount of our focus at the moment is on Facebook and Instagram, and mine as well. In the majority of what I do personally is on Facebook and Instagram. As an agency, we do operate wider. Ultimately, it's largely due to the fact that at the moment this is where we see the greatest return and also where the greatest scale is. Additionally, the Facebook ads platform, even if it does have many issues, is much more advanced than other options out there for the other platforms, as well as there being a wider variety of third-party management tools such as Smartly or AdEspresso or whatever it may be. However, whilst the majority of my own experience in Facebook-owned apps I mentioned, as an agency, we do operate on Snapchat, Twitter, Pinterest, Reddit, and more. Ultimately, adaptability is key here. If some of the Facebook doomsday scenarios come to pass, such as mass user abandonment, draconian government regulation, or moving to an ad-free paid model, as I've seen mentioned in a couple of articles, our continued success as marketers will depend on our capability and preparedness to shift spend across to other channels or adapt existing campaigns to reflect new regulations, etc. This would undeniably impact campaigns and would require a large scale of work, both by ourselves and the platforms themselves. If, for example, Twitter and Snapchat suddenly see a vast amount more of advertisers switching over to them, they're going to have to do some work to bring the platform up to scratch. But digital marketing as an industry has always shown itself to be flexible and adaptable. It's what we pride ourselves on. This will be the case with paid social specifically too. It's here to stay, with or without Facebook.
Great. Thank you so much, Jack. Thank you guys so much for listening. As I mentioned, if you do have any questions that we didn't get to, we will answer them if they're in the chat. If not, you can email us at info@nmpidigital.com or tweet us at NMPI_digital. Also, I want to let everybody know who's listening, we are hosting a seminar on the 28th of March about how to succeed in times of change. We would love for you to join us. After this webinar ends, you will be taken to the page for more information. If you're interested, please register. We are also live streaming the event, so if you're not in the UK, it's being held at Google's King's Cross office. If you're not in the UK, you can live stream the event, or if you can't make it there in person. All right, well, thank you so much, Jack, and thank you everybody for attending.